This sit-down interview with the moderator of the Discord election is a supplement to the Nepal Problem Solver Report. While the Problem Solver Report focuses on the future of Nepal, in this video we will talk to an individual who is at the center of the Gen Z protests that led the nation to where it is today. On September 4th, all social media platforms that failed to register with the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology were banned, while the Social Network Bill was being considered by Parliament in early 2025 to, quote, ensure the responsibility and accountability of social media platforms in Nepal. The bill was not actually ratified at the time of the ban. This ban happened to coincide with a social media trend highlighting nepotism amongst Nepalese elites. In a country with roughly 20% youth unemployment and decades of musical chair politics, people took to the streets to push back against corruption, nepotism, and the encroachment on their digital freedom. Protests quickly grew, and within only 6 days, the parliament was dissolved, the prime minister had resigned, and the military had taken control as the country fell into chaos. Much of the youth organization was done on the gaming messaging app Discord. One of these Discord channels, Youths Against Corruption, was used to inform the selection of the interim prime minister through a digital poll. This allowed individuals from across the nation to provide input on the transitional process. While researching this on Wikipedia, we came across the name Shaswot Lamichhane, who was responsible for establishing the Discord server that was used for the digital election. Is it an accurate description?
I just read it after you mentioned it, so it's an accurate description.
How does it feel to be on Wikipedia?
How does it feel to be in Wikipedia? I don't know, what?
We met with Shaswot one day after the national elections were held to learn from his experience. We talked about how he processed the events around the Gen Z protests, Nepal's current political situation, its previous history with revolutions, and much more. Can you walk me through the 6 months between setting up the interim government and the election today?
Let me give you a bit of context. I graduated high school around April. I suddenly had a lot of free time, So I was trying to experiment a lot with other fields. I was very much interested in natural sciences, particularly physics, and actually ranked number 1 in Nepal's Young Physicists tournament. The abundance of time that I did had after graduating high school, I thought that I could maybe explore other fields. I was interested in social psychology, and I analyzed the candlelight marches in South Korea and also the Hong Kong protests. I tried to see the moments before a huge mass gather, where two groups of people appear on the streets, they form small groups, they act very confused, they look at the walls, they check their phone. But when enough mass gathers, it flips. And now everyone is acting very synchronized. So when they are not in the streets, basically, they behave so individually. Every single person has different opinions on how the world should run. But when they come to the streets and when they start chanting one slogan, they all behave the same. They blink at the same rate. They straighten their posture. They march at the same rate. They almost synchronize into a single unit. And that phenomena really staggered me. There might be context to it, but it's almost always a single trigger that causes a protest. That might sound obvious. If you sort of accept that, then it becomes very easy to predict when a protest is going to happen. On the day of September 4, when social media sites were banned, I thought that was the trigger that could lead to a protest. Even before the rumors were spreading of a protest happening, I was busy contacting volunteer groups to make sure that it won't turn violent and it won't go out of hand, and that the ultimate objective should always be to make sure that young voices are heard and the new voices emerge.
The social media ban was like a big catalyst for you specifically. How old were you when you first downloaded social media?
I don't know, man. I grew up with social media. Maybe I was 3 or something. I was born in 2007. It's almost like asking, when did you download electricity? Right?
Do you remember when you downloaded Discord?
I think I was in grade 8 or something. We used Discord to do our science project. And I actually remember we made a pulley system. It provided a lot of features for free, and we were students, we couldn't pay for paid features.
For the protest, what were you using social media for?
I didn't use it much. I was very private, and I still am private. I don't use social media much. I have very few followers, if any.
Do you consume social media?
Yeah, I know how potent algorithm can be in putting you in a bubble. The only social media platform that I consume is YouTube. And what I do is actually I try to curate the algorithm so as it feeds me very boring content. Like I don't watch shorts. I have blocked shorts using my own extension that I've vibe coded.
Why can't we just make social media better and less addicting?
Well, you can't sell a cigarette without the nicotine.
Onto the Discord election, what were some of the challenges on like getting all these voices together?
Actually, was involved in moderation, and I was involved in like making sure that people are calm. It was a very stressful experience. I remember I didn't sleep for 2 days straight because if you blink for 2 seconds, someone casually drops a plan for bombing the parliament. A lot of the violence was curated via Discord. Automation tools couldn't understand Nepalese. We did the best that we could with the time that we had. We actually led a lot of rescue missions during September 9 when a lot of houses were on fire. And obviously the one that is the most public is that we had the election and then the Prime Minister right now was elected via that election, and obviously that election was anything but perfect. People criticized me a lot back then, saying that these were not democratic and so on. If people criticize me now, I'll just say that it took 6 months and we did a real one. So I'm pretty proud of it.
I guess, what is that like managing tens of thousands of people on humanity?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people all at the same time. What have you learned about human psychology and human interaction through that?
Yeah, we think that when humans go anonymous, they behave actually absolutely in a crazy way. Right, but I feel that it's kind of the opposite. I mean, you are free to express yourself, but when you are anonymous, that's when you don't have to perform. It was only text-based communication at first, but we thought that it wasn't effective enough because being a human means you are able to speak and you have your own unique voice. That is why we actually had this Discord stage, kind of the podcast where everyone was allowed to talk, and that helped pacify the people. So the only way to add a little bit of more humanity into it while still being anonymous is using your voice. So that's why we created all forms of voice channels where you could speak with the locals. Like, we separated those voice channels by reasons and bring everyone on the common ground that now it's violence as you stop.
How did you know that the people that were commenting and typing were real Nepalese people and not bots or AI or anything?
Yeah, you didn't know. But if you look at the options that we had, we thought that Discord was the best of the evils, kind of. Of course it's an American company. Of course it can be manipulated. Of course, maybe I could, if I spend 2 hours flooded with bots. I don't know if you know ostrich algorithm. It's a very sophisticated algorithm where what you do is you anticipate a problem and then you just bury your head. So that's what we did. We ran the ostrich algorithm. This was not like sort of a decisive thing that let's say if the Discord election voted to dissolve the country, we will go ahead and dissolve the country, right? This was just supposed to be a group chat, let's say, of the protesters. I remember seeing headlines where they say that the Discord is the new parliament of Nepal, and then moderators are the ministers and that kind of thing. But it was not like that. The army was in control.
There's the discussion of like direct democracy. Nepal is like 85% smartphone adoption and like 80% internet access. With your experience of seeing a democratic process and discussion happen on Discord, like, do you see a potential to use these technologies and digitizing elections?
Via blockchains, maybe via Solana and that kind of thing, we could get to a means of digital voting where we will have reliably accurate and foolproof way of voting. But ultimately, it's not about the technicalities of it. It's about the social aspect. A bunch of 70-year-olds won't trust, typing buttons to vote. Nobody will understand how blockchain voting works, and this will just cause a massive uprising. So I don't think we're anywhere near it yet. If you look at the simplicity of paper ballots, how easy it is to explain, I think it will still prevail for some time, unless maybe when AI comes and we won't need voting at all.
Shaswat's anticipation and focus on stability, order, and peace during the protest is the key reason why people trusted him and his Discord server when it mattered most. Let's move on to his views for the future of the country. Yesterday was election day. What are your thoughts on how the election turned out?
What happened yesterday was the ultimate Discord election. It was executed flawlessly almost. Like, there was almost no incident. Everything went on time. No election had to be redone. The voting count has already begun.
Did you vote?
I did, yeah.
So what were you voting? Nice. Is this still on there?
Yeah, this is the one.
Nice. What were you looking for in the candidates?
The one thing that has become very clear to me is that a single candidate or a single party, even if they win a majority, they won't be able to fix issues. You don't just bringing some crazy idea every couple of years and then you solve the system, right? You need to be very incremental with the change. What lacks is education and civic agency amongst people. So those kind of incremental updates, not like massive reforms like cutting down 12 ministries or like militarizing the whole country and that kind of thing.
To improving education, what do you think were those practical solutions?
In terms of education, this is a global problem. Education should be a lot more dynamic. It should be much more real life based, where you don't just study and give exams. You get involved in hands-on projects, go on trips more. It might seem like a buzzword, but integrate AI into it. Understand what kind of learning a child prefers, and then adapting education in order to do that. But I'm saying it in a very shallow way. There needs to be a lot of depth into it. As I said, gradually make sure that education works for everyone.
And then civil reforms. For you, what were the biggest civil reforms you wanted to see?
Those incremental updates could be making sure that remittance can flow easily into the country, or that we could regulate and legalize crypto. So let's say if the global financial system breaks down, Nepalese people will be very badly damaged. I think it's a good hedge against the volatility of currency. What I want to encourage is deeper study to assess the feasibility of crypto. I actually talked with the governor, the Nepalese Central Bank, on like why he banned crypto, and he just said that it will encourage more illegal trading. That's all. I don't think that's a valid reason. Bhutan, for example, they fund their bureaucracy using Bitcoin because they have such cheap hydro. The same can apply to Nepal maybe. So bureaucracy must be streamlined and made efficient. Just a few months ago I was trying to register a startup, but it took me 2 months to register one because the bureaucracy was so slow. I had to register in 3 different agencies. There were opportunities where I truly contemplated giving a bribe. I didn't do it, of course, but you get to such a point where you feel that a bribe might be necessary, so as to not hurt your business.
General economic future. What direction should Nepal go?
I'm more in the middle. Like, I don't want hardline communism, but I also don't think unchecked capitalism will work in Nepal because it will be such a drastic change. Hardline capitalism doesn't work in this particular region. Maybe that's a cultural thing, I don't know. The structure right now that we have, which is a welfare system combined with free market, the economic system, I think is fine. What we do need is incentives politically. I mean, if you look at Nepal as a country, it doesn't have a lot of resources. Nepal has cheap electricity. It has abundant hydro. And so what we're doing right now is selling electricity to other countries, which I don't think is the best practice. Like utilizing electricity at home to drive growth. What is a good way to do that? Do it right now. I don't think we'll go into manufacturing because, as I said, we don't have raw materials or resources. So I think an alternative might be AI and then crypto. I think those could have huge potential in Nepal. I'm like saying it in a shallow way. Obviously, we need to have deep research into how data centers may operate and what the environmental consequences of it might be.
The current Gen Z movement is only the most recent in a long string of revolutions in Nepal. With Shaswot being so young, we want to hear his perspective on Nepal's storied revolutionary history. Why is there so much internal conflict?
The democracy is as old as me, and so that's pretty young, isn't it? Nepal was a monarchy between two. I don't want to say democracies, but non-monarchy. That might have led to this tug of war between monarchy and then democracy that led to civil war and that kind of thing. Like the civil war indeed was caused by the Maoists. That was in order to overthrow the monarchy, which it did, and then the civil war ended. Rather than looking at it in a local perspective, if you look at a global perspective, this is just a human tendency. We like to grab onto power, and when we do have power, we want more. And I think this is a global phenomenon rather than like localizing it in Nepal.
I'm glad you brought up the Civil War. You were born 1 year after it ended. How have you kind of learned about it?
People have now started to oppose it more and more once they become aware of the atrocities that happened during the Civil War, which is the killing of so many people and the looting of places. But now there is a rise of monarchists again in Nepal, which makes it very weird considering how 20 years ago they were ready to die for democracy, and now they are ready to die for monarchy. You see development happening everywhere. You see like India rising massively, China rising massively, and you see Nepal that isn't developing to the pace that it should. World War I, Germans were confused of why Germany lost. Or rather than like finding out the actual cause, they started blaming it on everything else. Even though like the situation is completely different, because we don't see prosperity to the levels that we assume that we should, we now blame it to maybe the system, maybe to the monarchy and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. The famous quote from Mao is that politics happens out of a barrel of a gun. How do you reconcile the fact that every time there has been progress towards democracy, there has been deaths? How do you reconcile that correlation, I think?
Now, this is a hard question. Systems run on inertia. Democracies run on inertia, and so in order to break that inertia, you need massive momentum, right, in the opposite direction. And usually, that ends up killing people. That's the, I guess, the sad truth of it. And if you look at the extent to which people can do, like what is the highest extent an individual could go in order to bring change, and that is obviously that. In order to bring change, and monarchy is a 200-year-old phenomenon here in Nepal. You need some like very drastic actions, and so that led to people dying.
What do you see for your future?
Like, had this on sequence of events not unfolded, I think I would have applied to some universities, get out of the country, maybe study natural sciences. Right now, I'm just not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe I will end up returning to Nepal, because this is where I call home, where I grew up, and I know a lot of this place. And I do have this this belonging here, but I want to challenge myself, and I think I'm too much at my comfort zone here.
Even after our long conversation, there was still more to discuss with Shaswot, so we met again a week later. How did you start your political career?
At my 8th grade speech competition that I won.
What did you talk about at that event?
Oh, my speech was about Pashupatinath and how to modernize it.
What is Pashupatinath temple?
You could simply say that it's a temple for the Shiva. I mean, there are live cremations there, which reminds you of death. There's a lot of things. It is actually a beautiful ceremony to say your final goodbyes.
And what was your proposal to modernize it?
I mean, like, one of them was to electrify cremations, to pave the roads, to not allow street vendors nearby, and then to provide free ambulances for the people who might get sick there.
Well, what is your relationship with Hinduism?
Oh, it's mixed. I mean, I don't particularly believe in the idols as much, but I do think that there's substance to the philosophy behind Hinduism, to live without concerning yourself, with the materialistic things, and then, like, in Hinduism you get cremated after you die. You burn, and not even a permanent stone is there after you die. So it really, like, makes you think of how impermanent life is, and how you ought to live it.
What is fire?
I mean, like, basically it's probably a carbon combustion combining with oxygen, and then, like, it is an exothermic reaction, so we get heat.
So what does fire mean to you?
It's very mysterious. It's very strange. It's captivating almost. A fire will always turn anything into ash, and it won't last very long. So it's a good metaphor for maybe revolutions. The fuel is the system itself, right? The system, how it's put into place, all the history maybe, and then the spark. What sets the fire is the immediate trigger. What burns is the system itself, right? The fuel turns into acid.
What is the smoke in your eyes?
In people's eyes, the fire might provide warmth momentarily, but to some people, the smoke will hurt your eyes. And once the fire extinguishes, now you have this task of disposing the ashes and, like, building and getting new wood, and maybe we'll have a fire again. Who knows?
What would you like to say to Shaswot in 10 years?
Alright, well, I hope he's alive. Like, not just physically, but, I hope he's living.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want to hear more from Shaswot, you can check him out in these 2 videos.
Those people who are anti-communist, they always ask such type of question, but that is not good.
As you change the constitution, the old structure is a parasite. They adopt it easily. This year's Nobel Prize in Economics is creative destruction. You have to destruct the old system, but creative way.